Good afternoon and welcome to Up Close, a video series in which we discuss with the who's who of retail about the future plans of retail. And today we have a very special guest joining us. But before I introduce him to you, let me introduce their company and tell you a little more about the company. So, from humble beginnings back in 1979 with a supermarket in Ajman, Lal's Group has certainly come a long, long way with sprawling retail spaces across the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, and KSA. With brands like Homes R Us, Carter's, Daiso Japan, and so many more. And of course, the newly launched Mom Store. The company has a diverse retail portfolio. And today we have the man himself behind the show, Jayant Ganwani, joining us here on Up Close with Retail Leaders. Thanks so much for joining us, Jayant.
Shruti, it's good to be with you. Thank you very much. And hello to all your listeners and viewers.
Amazing. So I think first things first, Jayant, how are you and how has 2021 been so far for you?
Um, we've done, under the circumstances where retailers have seen their world fall out from beneath them, I think retail in general in the UAE has survived. This has a lot to do with the timely intervention from the authorities to make sure that we were given enough lifelines, not only by the various government institutions, but by the landlords as well. I think the landlords have been extremely receptive to feedback from retailers in terms of understanding our pain. Have they met us halfway? I think that the jury is still out on that because we've carried most of the burden. But I must confess that the landlords have done what they could to the best of their ability, given their own businesses realities, and we've all survived. 21 is started off reasonably well, and I think we saw the second wave of the pandemic come across our world, as we call it, because Emirates opens us up to the world, and if the world is closing, then our world tends to become a smaller. The universe starts to become smaller, and with flights closing across the world, tourists not coming in, disease incidents increasing. It has been a tough quarter, and I think it does not, at this moment, the news that we are seeing with India having recently closed, with the new pandemic waves coming in different areas, I think it's going to be a difficult year. But everybody should have done, and I think has done enough to restructure their businesses so that we can survive until we are finally out of this, perhaps late summer, early fall in that respect.
We will get into the restructuring of your business specifically as well in terms of how you've diversified from the ready range of portfolio that you already have. But considering you've already got so many brands which are diverse in its scheme and scale, I know it's going to be a tricky one for you, but so far, what have you seen? Which vertical is doing well and which one is struggling?
Um, if I look at the industry, and I'll talk about clouds in a minute, if I look at the industry for obvious reasons, um, the food retail business has done well. People have stayed at home, consumption is increasing, people are not going out, restaurants are shut. Besides the food industry, the luxury industry has done really well. People have income that they otherwise would have spent on other things. Therefore, the luxury end has done extremely well. For my portfolio, we've seen two things happen. Number one, people staying more at home have focused on their own homes, and therefore the furniture segment across the GCC has done well. And on the other side, people staying at home has led to a sort of a mini population birth boom, and the mother and child businesses are also doing well for us.
And is that why you've started the Mom Store?
You know, the Mom Store although it's come to fruition during this critical time, but it's a project that we've been working on for probably, I would say, 36, 48 months. We felt that there was a gap in the market for quality at the right price, a value to the customer, which I think that in Dubai, we have a plethora, or in the GCC, we have a plethora of brands catering to a particular segment, but some of them are far too value driven, lacking the focus on quality. Some of them are far too expensive, for the average person to afford. And nobody, in our opinion, really carried the woman through her journey of becoming pregnant till she had the baby and a few years thereafter. And I think the team has done a tremendous job in conceptualizing a project that actually precisely delivers that. And the added cherry on the top is that we were able to launch it at this time with the right kind of digital infrastructure in place, which makes the mom store a complete digital, omni-channel, digital, whatever you may call it, experience for the consumer.
Right. So from a lot of retailers that we've spoken to in the past, they've said that, out of all the apparel retail verticals, the mother, baby, child vertical could be relatively more crisis proof, considering, there is going to be demand for that segment. And you've just mentioned that there has been a baby boom now. Given that there's a lot of competition for you in the market as well, right? With the likes of the Mums World, which is not only focused on product, it's product, content, and community. Then Alabar recently announced with Noon they're going to diversify into the mother, baby, child. So are you conscious of that as well while starting the Mom Store?
We are absolutely conscious of that. I think Mom's World is a tremendous business, but I must confess that our ethos is not selling dustbins and hair curlers to that extent. We want to be a very Mom's World do what they do tremendously well as a marketplace. They carry a very large range. We want to be very focused purely on the prenatal, natal, and then the postnatal stages of a woman's life and her children. Everything to do just with that phase is where we think our sweet spot is. The one aspect that I think makes us stand out from where we are is 70% of our product is unique to our stores and to our platform. And I think that is something that is hard to replicate. Everybody wants to do that, but I think only businesses that have the physical presence will be able to get the uniqueness in terms of the brands that we have on in both the store and on our platform.
Sure. So physical presence is important right now, but the purpose of stores are obviously changing, right? So it's not going to be a point of transaction anymore because you have e-commerce for that. People are talking about stores being more experiential, stores being media, stores being a marketing arm, and all of that. For Mom Store, what would you say is a USP then compared to the competition you have?
I think when we sat down, and if you look at a typical Mom Store unit, it's going to be circa 800 to 1,000 meters in size. And that is pretty sizable given the fact that rentals are in most cases very large part of the cost base of a retailer. So people are trying to make their stores as effective in terms of cost per square foot or sales per square foot as we go along. With the Mom Store, if you walk in, I think 40% of our space is dedicated to experience. Kids can go and play in the digital area. Moms can go and sit down in a comfortable lounge where they can ask people to bring things to them, because pregnancy is treats differently, people differently, and the experience is different. Some of them are very up and about. Some of them are in need of more help than anything else. And the store is created just to make sure that people for the first time who've not seen brands like eye candy, Boogaboo, etc., and the organic apparel that we are bringing in, the specialized nursery stuff that we are bringing in, customers. I think that in this omni-channel world, the customer needs to see for himself or herself the item once to make sure this meets my liking. And thereafter, you can easily convert them onto the omni-channel.
Again, omni-channel is the new buzzword, the new cool word that every retailer is using. However, when you look at it from a global point of view, there's still a lot that needs to be done in the omni universe. One of the things you touched upon is, of course, returns, right? And that is something that a lot of retailers are struggling with the process not being as seamless, at least for a customer. What are the elements that you think that an omni-channel retailer today needs to get right? And what are they struggling with?
I think organization. So I must confess, we were very late to the party. We were very, very late to the party. And I think it's a admission of guilt on my part, because my team was pushing for us to do this for a long time. And we were of the opinion that we still were going to wait and see how this world particularly developed. When the lockdown took place, it became very clear that whoever had a online selling platform was actually making great inroads, acquiring market share of retailers like us, because they just happened to be present and we were not. And I think that started this journey for us. I think the biggest challenge that remains, so today all our businesses are online, and I think we've done a heck of a job. We worked with really good companies. We weren't rushing it out and knocking them out every week. It took us about 8 months to get the testing right, the product right, the look right. And I think today we have interactive platforms that the customers can use with ease, and every service that they would look for, not only product, but advice, experiences, everything is on those platforms that we've put together. We believed for the Homes R Us business that omni-channel was perhaps being a little bit too optimistic. People want to sit on that sofa, sleep on that bed, sit on that dining table.
Yeah.
But with the launch of the platform, we're seeing people buy sofa sets without trying them. And I think I am as surprised as anybody within the organization, that we initially thought that people did not make such substantial purchases, especially such personal ones, without actually trying out the product, but it is happening. I think organizations like us suffer from antiquated, latent technology platforms, processes that are historical. Getting the right people that change the processes, giving them the carte blanche to make those changes, setting up specific logistics facilities that can service a omni-channel platform. That's important. If you're going to try and paint a fresh coat over the old processes and believe that you will succeed in this digital world, I think that won't happen. Before we opened the businesses, we actually bought logistics facilities, set up the testing for goods to be delivered and returned to people, because trying to do them from our traditional brick and mortar warehouse would have been an absolute disaster. And I think that's the big learning for us as a business.
Amazing. So you did mention that, or you confessed that you were late to the game, but that would have also given you a chance to learn from the mistakes of the other retailers in the region who started with the whole omni-channel process, etc. So at this point, what would you say that you prioritized your investments in after learning from the mistakes of your friends and competitors?
Retail used to be location, location, location. I think location has become redundant today in this world, because you're able to reach the consumer's house.
Yeah.
I think service has become extremely important. Timeliness has become extremely important. Your ability to indulge the customer in their likes and dislikes. I thought this red was a different red. I thought this pink was a different red. And as you correctly point out, the industry has circa 18-20% return rate, and that is a costly exercise for any retailer that is going to be in this space. And I think until we are able to get into the consumers' homes and they experience us, understand us, and your return rates come down, because selling is easy, but retaining the customer in the future and their loyalty is going to be a function of the sales and the after sale service that you provide. And that's no longer just servicing in the store. It is to the satisfaction of the customer.
Right. You did mention technologies and how you were surprised with people buying sofa sets, etc., just online. We've spoken to other home retailers who believe that today, at this point, there are two categories: home category and non-home category, considering work from home has become such an important part of our life, blended schools, etc. with all of those home retailers and decor retailers, augmented reality, virtual reality, and stuff like that, the emerging technologies has been a very important part of their entire customer acquisition and sales process. Have you made investments in those aspects, and do you think it's very important?
I think eventually AR, VR will become very important. AI is a part of every technology because we're trying to learn what our consumer is trying to do. We haven't yet looked at the AR, VR aspect because for us, I think we can't put the cart before the horse and say we're just going online and we're going to do everything else that the established retailers around the world are doing.
Yeah.
We need to learn what works well, what our consumer demands, and what do we provide in the process. But it's easy to acquire technology. Spending money on technology is cheap, but getting the most out of technology is the most difficult aspect as far as I'm concerned. And as an executive in the business, I think people tend to get carried away with buzzwords and start to put facilities out there that they are never properly implemented, installed, customers aren't trained, and therefore they remain redundant. So for us, it isn't the buzzwords that are important, it is the eventual delivery to the consumer, both in terms of a timely delivery, a quality delivery, and if the customer is not happy, then putting a smile on our face and taking the product back, that's important for us.
And it comes back to the basic question, right? About what do the customers want? And I think that is what all retailers are asking. So can I ask you that? What do your customers want? What are they looking for today?
There are two things that customers sometimes don't give you the full picture. Sometimes they tell you, please deliver this sofa set to my home, but they don't tell you I live on the 30th floor of a building that can't take a 2.8-meter sofa. So I think that the challenge sometimes is the level of transparency that the customer provides, both intentionally and unintentionally. Expectations of customers, mothers are far more difficult, and in our opinion, ladies are more difficult to please on the digital world. In the store, they make their own decisions, they are easy to satisfy, and they know what they're buying. On the digital world, I think we need to understand our customer far better. What kind of origin of product are they looking for? What kind of price point are they looking at? What kind of after-sale service are they looking for? Being able to sell and concluding the sale and receiving the money doesn't end the transaction from our point of view. Loyalty and experience will remain the two most important ingredients of any omni-channel or brick and mortar retailer's principle going forward. That is never going to change. And anybody who believes, and I think the only exceptions are the extremely high-end brands where quantities are so limited that once they release, the customer jumps and buys them no matter what the price, what the use or lack thereof. Everybody just wants it for me. In our businesses, I think we need to make sure that we keep talking to our customer, understanding them, what is the gap. And I think gap analysis isn't just to write code or create software. Gap analysis is probably the most important thing for a retailer to understand. What does my customer want? Because my customer is changing. The consumer in the GCC, I would say roughly 50 plus 60% approximately is below the age of 25. And for the mom store business, that is the ideal demographic subset. And that's where we're going to see the most demand come from for product. And we need to know, where is that customer traveling? Which brands is he experiencing during his lifetime? Because if they like something in, let's say, Argentina, Taiwan, Australia, a retailer is obligated actually to go and find that collage of product and present it to their consumer. And I think that's something that we'll have to do effectively.
Yeah, and that is a lot of hard work and legwork, isn't it?
The team has to be, the sourcing team and the merchandising team has to be on their toes 24/7.
So experiences or experiential retail is something that everybody's been talking about, right? However, online, the experience that most customers expect is just a quick, seamless process, which is hassle-free. But in store, is it about just
That's what we wish for, the quick seamless. I have been on so many sites, and it's an absolute disaster because the form won't load. You will go through the archaic process of placing an order, and
yeah.
suddenly the page just refreshes on its own, and I just close those sites and walk away. And that applies to grocery businesses, that applies to big brands. I think a lot of people have rushed and put out platforms which actually deter the consumer from patronizing their businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one problem that we're facing, and that is one problem that, like you said, it deters us from going back to the same site. And I'm again talking from a customer's point of view. In the store, again, when you're talking about experiences, it isn't necessarily about this convenient, seamless experience. We are sometimes looking for a wow factor. We're sometimes looking for this unique experience, which sort of takes us to another realm. And we're also looking for in traditional TV we call it cord cutting, but basically just being dissociated with technology, not using our phones, not spending so much time on our phones and experience it, right? Do you think retailers here are getting that aspect right, or is there a disconnect in philosophies?
If you see the evolution of stores that are coming on a regular basis, and I would say all the new malls are a great example of how retail is evolving. And I think if you talk to a major mall operator today and your store isn't experiential enough, I suspect as a legacy brand, you're not going to get a store from the
Yeah,
mall. The
yeah.
mall wants your stores to be the points of difference. They want your store, and I think in my interaction with the team at Majid Al Futtaim, because they are our first landlord for the mom store in Mirdif City Center, when we went and pitched the idea to them, a ground floor prime entrance proximate location, 8,000 square feet in size, was a big leap of faith for them, for a brand that had not been tested in that market. When we opened the store, everyone from the math business was like, listen, this is beyond what we expected from a customer experience, customer journey point of view. We had our future landlords from Imar in the business, and they were like, what can we do to really take the store into our future developments, etc., etc. And I think that to us proves that the not just the retailers but the shopping malls and the consumer are two parallel forces that are forcing a retailer's concept to evolve. And I think if a mother has not yet been to the mom store, I think she should go in and see how much she would enjoy a non-cluttered, relaxed shopping experience, how her little ones could be busy while she has the ability to do what she needs to do. She
Mm.
wants to take a break, she can take that break. So I think retail will evolve, and we're not done. I think our concept is a work in progress. It will continue to evolve as we open every store. We will be in all the four malls of Dubai very soon. The Dubai Mall opens perhaps in the next week or so. We will be in Mall of the Emirates soon, and the other malls are speaking to us. But I think you are absolutely correct. Um, Store development is itself changing in a big way.
Right. So since you've also mentioned a few of the malls that you're collaborating with, and some of them have their own concepts, right? For example, Majid Al Futtaim, they have the That Concept store, which is again like this massive new experiential retail that we haven't really experienced before here in the region, and that's brilliant. That brings me to the conversation we were having a little bit earlier about collaborations among retailers, and that is one thing that we would like to see more of, because we think that there is something great that could come out of it.
I think the best collaboration between retailers and used to be the concept of a department store.
Yeah.
And as we know it around the world, the concept of a department store is beginning to fail in earnest, whether it's the UK High Street, whether it's the Fifth Avenue in the US. The department store is failing, but I think we're going to see in the future like-minded retailers that offer complementary products to each other, collaborating to create larger retail experiential environments. And I think that's something that nobody's really talking about at the moment, because I think it's something that people are guarded about in terms of sharing customer data, product data, etc., across the channel. But if somebody came to me and said, I'd love to collaborate with you on bathroom tiles and kitchen accessories in your Homes R Us business, I would be all for it, because I think collaboration on complementary services would really work well in the industry.
Right. And are we going to expect to see more of those collaborations happening?
I don't think that there is a choice. I think the superstore, not the department store, I think the superstore that has complementary products offered by 3 or 4 retailers. I think Thailand did that really well in the early stages in their department stores. Every retailer came and set up his own shop, and everybody worked together. But I think over time, I think there will be 2 or 3 retailers that within a particular consumer journey say we are all better served by being together, and let's try and put that together and see what we do.
Sure. So what kind of real estate do you think works best for retail in an environment like this? Is it malls? Is it hotels? We've seen retailing in hotels. Is it standalone stores? What is it?
I think, listen, hotels have always been an enigma to me, and I see the odd boutique doing well, and the odd jewelry store doing well based on the socioeconomic demographic that the hotel is inviting into its doors. Besides that, I've not really seen retail in true sense work in hotels. As far as shopping malls are concerned, I think that we are very close to an over-malled position in the GCC.
Yeah.
I think we need to be far more focused, and malls as a malls used to be and continue to be the life of the average day of the consumer. And the consumer goes to a mall 3-4 times a week in the UAE, or the GCC, which is probably the highest anywhere in the world. That is because of the heat outdoors. Street side location doesn't really work the same way a shopping center works. So I think malls need to become more focused. The carpet bombing of locations by the same retailers in every mall has to change. Each mall needs to probably figure out where its niche is, and have retail adjacencies that are different between their portfolios. If they don't do that, I think you're going to see a lot more malls ending up with hoardings than successful.
Sure. Then I also need to talk to you about the metrics then, right? Like today, when you look at the physical stores, sales per square foot and a lot of those metrics are used to determine the success of a store, which doesn't make sense anymore considering e-commerce and online is such an important aspect. And the second side of things is even the profit sharing ratio between a mall and a retail store. So, if a store acts as a fulfillment center where e-commerce orders go from a store, then there is a certain level of profit sharing that happens. Should everything be cast on stone, or can that also have the metrics can also have an evolution in the market?
See, I think the way contracts are written in some cases here, it makes fulfillment from a store extremely expensive for a retailer, and therefore retailers need to get click and collect is a great idea, and it adds convenience, but the moment you do that, that sale ends up being, the malls end up believing that that's a sale that you did in my premises, and therefore it falls in your calculation of rental that is payable to the mall. I think that idea isn't commonly applied. When we checked as the RBG with the other retailers around the world, click and collect sales don't form a part of the sales of the store, because the transaction and the consideration was paid on a different platform rather than in the store.
Mm.
Having said that, I think very much like dark kitchens, retailers that have a large chunk of their business coming from e-commerce and the digital platforms will move to specific custom-built logistics centers from where they'll do fulfillment to avoid any misunderstanding with their land.
Right.
And I think that's the future as far as the experience of e-commerce's journey on click and collect is concerned.
Amazing. So I think we've delved deep into a number of topics. I also want to talk to you more about the mall retail, and that's a whole other topic. Probably the next time we have a conversation. But for now, just taking the conversation back a little bit to a macro aspect. At this point, if you had to define the GCC's retail market today as of 2021, how would you do it?
I think the retail market continues to be under stress today, because what is sitting on top of our mind is the impact of COVID, the new costs that are coming across on everybody, whether that's the increased duties across the GCC, the implementation of VAT in new countries, the increased percentage of VAT across countries. The customer is beginning to feel a difference in the price at the checkout. And I think until that becomes a part of nature and something that they get accustomed to, consumption is going to remain restricted. Closed borders aren't helping. I think Dubai, Bahrain would really benefit with the GCC being open at large. The sales are far too low for the rentals that were contracted by people in the early phases prior to the pandemic, and those rentals haven't been reset yet to suit the new reality. I think the sooner we can do that, the ministries have been very good in allowing people to adjust salaries to suit this particular pandemic, but rentals necessarily haven't adjusted to the same level. I think a lot of balls are in the air and people are juggling, trying to make sense. Retailers at the end of the pandemic will be smaller, more focused, only left with profitable stores, because which isn't the healthiest thing to do, but that's what retailers are going to do to survive. Each one is just focused on cost mitigation, and the first thing that is done is close all non-productive stores to end up with only the best performers. To answer your first question, I think I looked at a number that digital sales form circa 6-7% of our sales in the GCC. And I think that number has the potential to increase over the next few years to circa 18-20%, which will put us in par with developed economies. I think when we reach 20%, you're going to see a major pressure on malls, because the top 3 or 4 will have stores. The other stores will become redundant in the true sense. So I think that will open a Pandora's box that is very, very difficult to currently understand the implications of.
It's interesting you say that, considering you've just opened a store, you have plans of opening 15 more stores of the.
But we don't. So if you had this conversation with me 5 years back, I would have said it has a 50 store potential, because we would have considered every good mall, quote unquote. Now, the definition of a good mall or a regional mall or a super regional mall is all changing. And if the GCC's population of circa 75 million is anything to go by, 15 stores are not too many in terms of being only in the super regional malls. We won't look at any non-super regionals going forward.
Again, thanks so much, Jayant, for your time. Thanks for being so candid and honest with us. It was amazing having this conversation with you, and hope to meet you in person real soon.
Thank you. Good luck, Shruti. Take care. Bye-bye.
And thanks to all the viewers who've tuned in to Up Close with Retail Leaders. We will be back again with another session very, very soon. So don't forget to download the Retail ME app. See you then. Bye.
Stay safe.